Diablo IV is back with a new DLC, Lord of Hatred, that makes some of the biggest changes to the game since its launch. But are these changes enough to make Diablo IV worth playing in 2026? Let's find out. Hey everyone, it's Spopes. There are probably very few who remember this, but the original focus of my channel was Diablo IV. So when I heard that a new DLC is coming out, I definitely wanted to make sure I covered it and gave my thoughts. So in this video, I'm going to provide the pros and cons of playing Diablo IV in 2026. I'm going to cover everything that the new DLC, Lord of Hatred, improves and changes. I'm also going to cover the reasons you might want to skip out on this DLC or not pick the game back up this year. Before we dive in, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please like and hype this video, and consider supporting me by becoming a member, picking up some merch, or leaving a donation. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Let's dive into everything that's changing in Diablo IV this year to help you better understand whether it's worth picking up Diablo IV for the first time, coming back as a returning player, or just continuing to play as you already have. In my mind, the main reason that Diablo IV is worth playing in 2026 is just the sheer scope of the changes that are being made in Lord of Hatred. Especially if you've never played the game or haven't played in a while, it's worth checking it out now to simply see what Diablo IV has evolved into over the last 3 years. Every class is seeing a thorough rework to its skill lines. There's a new region, Skovos. The Horadric Cube is coming back. There's going to be a native loot filter, massive changes to how the map works, and even the introduction of fishing. So in general, there's a lot to explore and experience, a lot of new gameplay to try out, and for me at least, it will draw me back into the game just to experience everything that's new. So now we're going to cover each of the new features and changes to the game in more detail, and then finish up the video by covering the cons that might still keep you away from the game. So let's start with the new classes. Diablo IV Lord of Hatred introduces 2 new classes to the game. The Paladin, which has actually been out since December if you pre-ordered, and the Warlock, which is launching with the DLC. The Paladin is much like you may remember the Paladin from Diablo II. You can have holy hammers orbiting around you. It's mainly a sword and board class, and it evokes the Holy Light in a surprisingly non-deconstructionist postmodern way. It's not the Holy Light, but it's evil somehow, which is what we've come to expect from Diablo IV. It's literally just Chadly, Christly, big-time Holy Light amazingness. Nothing weird or evil about it. That more than anything is what has made me like the Paladin the most out of any class. Plus the fact that the Arbiter Paladin is just incredibly fun. You just go around in the guise of an angel, smacking the crap out of demons with your holy wings. So Arbiter Paladin is great, and the Paladin itself is really fun. Now on to the Warlock. The Warlock is as unabashedly evil as the Paladin is good. Diablo actually released a Warlock in all 3 of its currently serviced games this year. So in Diablo 2 Resurrected, in Diablo Immortal, and now finally here in Diablo 4. The main aesthetic of the Warlock is you're using the forces of hell against hell. You're summoning and binding demons to then do your bidding. This is probably the darkest and most evil-oriented class in the history of Diablo. Of course, you're still fighting on the side of the light, sort of, but this continues the theme of Blizzard blurring the lines between light and dark. There is no absolute good or absolute evil. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Inarius was actually bad, Lilith was actually good. Sooner or later, I think they're going to reveal that Diablo was actually the protagonist the entire time, and he was merely misunderstood, and then the hero is going to become some devotee of Diablo, and at that point, I'm completely off the boat. But yes, the Warlock pushes the boundaries of what is good and evil. There's no way around the fact that you are summoning and channeling the power of demons, which, you know, in the real world definitely never goes well, which is honestly why me and a buddy of mine have decided not to try the Warlock. We're just going to stick with Paladin. So for me personally, the addition of the Warlock to the DLC doesn't really add much. It's cool that there are 2 new classes, but the Warlock is too overtly Satanist for me to really get into it. But yeah, those are the 2 new classes. Paladin, you wield the Holy Lights. Warlock, you wield the Unholy Darkness. I do like the dichotomy and the duality of these class choices, and the fact that 2 new classes are being added. This is probably the biggest feature in the new DLC, one of the biggest chunks of new content for players to sink their teeth into. But then we do also have the addition of a brand new region, Skovos. This is the birthplace of humanity. It's the first place that Inarius and Lilith came to when they created the world, and it is the ancestral home of the Amazons, which led to some speculation early on the Amazon would be one of the new classes, which turned out not to be true. But Skovos is loosely based in the Greek Isles. It's under attack from a new type of enemy called the Drowned. It should be a lot of fun to explore, having a brand new area in the game to run around, do quests, experience new scenery. Though for me, one of my biggest enduring aesthetic problems with Diablo IV is every region looks basically the same. It all looks kind of whitewashed. Gone are the days where there was a huge difference between the aesthetics of, say, Act 1 in Diablo 2 and Act 2. Every single act in Diablo 2 looked really distinct and different. I'm not sure exactly what aspect it is of Diablo 4's aesthetics that makes all the areas look the same, but that's my only real complaint with Skovos. Other than that, I think it has some really interesting lore behind it. It'll be a really fun place to explore. And then also, really importantly, every single class in the game is getting a complete rework to its skill tree. The previous skill twig system, where there really wasn't much choice, is being replaced with a bona fide skill tree, where you can customize your skills much more comprehensively. This is going to apply to the Paladin that has already been out for a while. The new Warlock, of course, is going to have this new skill tree design, but then all the other classes as well. The Necromancer, the Barbarian, the Sorcerer, etc. They are all getting complete reworks to their skill trees, making the process of choosing skills much more robust. This is probably one of the biggest wins in the DLC for me. You're going to be able to do a lot more interesting stuff with each of the classes. This is going to make gameplay much more robust, just add to the depth and complexity of the game in general, which has been one of the biggest complaints about Diablo 4 since its release, and one of the most common criticisms people use when comparing Diablo 4 to Path of Exile. Another big point of criticism for Diablo 4, especially in comparison to Path of Exile, is the endgame progression system. So Blizzard's response to that was basically to just copy the Atlas system from Path of Exile and turn it into war plans. War plans allows you to combine different kinds of endgame activities and customize both the rewards you get from them and the type of gameplay you'll encounter when you're engaged in these activities. You'll be able to choose to get difficult to farm endgame resources like Obdicite, for instance, from types of activities that generally don't give it, and you'll be able to control which type of enemies you'll encounter. So this is basically like a watered down version of the Atlas from PoE. It's not anywhere near as complex as the Atlas, but it does breathe some life into the endgame, make it a little bit more interesting. Now, what war plans do not do is add any actually new endgame activities to the game. It's the same tired old kind of stuff, but at least it'll be more customizable and rewarding. But speaking of endgame activities, there is a brand new type of endgame activity in Lord of Hatred called Echoing Hatred. To access this new activity, you need a super rare drop called Trace of Echoes. But then once you're in, Echoing Hatred is basically the hardest type of endgame content they've ever done in Diablo 4. It's a wave-based endgame activity, kind of making it similar to Infernal Hordes, but it goes on infinitely, getting harder and harder as you go. Every time you access it, it's a different terrain, different types of enemies, and you get better loot the longer you stay alive. So Echoing Hatred does sound pretty cool, but the rarity of being able to access it kind of takes away the appeal for me. And also, just be clear, this is not the same thing as Echo of Hatred, which is where you go fight Uber Lilith. Echoing Hatred is the new endgame activity. And now something that's being added with Lord of Hatred as well, that I can't personally decide if it's actually cool or just gimmicky, is the return of the Horadric Cube. This is a staple feature of Diablo 2, absolutely necessary for crafting and combining items. A version of it came into Diablo 3 in the form of Kanai's Cube, but nothing like this has been in the game yet in Diablo 4. In Diablo 4, instead of combining materials and such, the Horadric Cube allows you to re-roll, add, or remove affixes on your gear. You can also upgrade lower tier items into legendary or unique items, and essentially this allows you to take a bad roll on gear and perfect it. So it's great they're adding a new layer of crafting in Diablo 4, making the crafting system more customizable, allowing you to salvage gear that would otherwise be useless and turn it into something good. I'm just not sure exactly how this corresponds with the original Horadric Cube, why they actually needed the Horadric Cube and could have just added this to the blacksmith or something. But it is cool in the way that it kind of gets those member berries going. Oh yeah, you remember the Horadric Cube from Diablo 2? Well, now it's back. So come play Diablo 4. That's kind of the overall vibe I get, while at the same time, I don't want to be too negative. I do think it's great that crafting is going to be more customizable. There's also a pretty cool and complex new system being added to Diablo 4 and Lord of Hatred called the Talisman System. Put simply, this allows you to get set bonuses without actually having set gear. It's essentially a modular socket board that adds a new layer of character power without requiring you to replace your existing armor or weapons. The way it works is you equip seals and charms in your talisman. Seals determine how many charm slots are available, and they serve as the centerpiece of the board. From there, you can have either normal, set, or unique charms, where the set charms provide escalating bonuses depending on how many of that set you have equipped, and then unique charms allow you to get the power of certain unique items, while freeing up that slot for legendary aspects. So the Talisman system adds another layer of customization to your character, allows you to become more powerful and do completely new things. So I really can't think of anything negative about the Talisman system. I think it's a great addition to the game across the board, and I honestly can't wait to try it out. Much to the celebration of longtime Diablo 4 players, there is also a native loot filter being added to the game. So this way you'll be able to avoid loot you don't want to get, only pick up what you actually want, bringing Diablo 4 in line with competitors like Path of Exile, and also, ironically, with Diablo 2, which finally got a native loot filter in Reign of the Warlock, the DLC that came out earlier this year. So not much to say here, just a huge win. Having a loot filter in Diablo 4 will make the grind a lot easier, allow you to avoid items cluttering up your screen you don't care about. Props to Blizzard for getting this in the game. I'm excited to check out the loot filter for myself. The way that gems work in Diablo 4 has also completely changed this year. The gems are still the same color as ever, they have the same names, but what each of the gem types does has completely changed. Specifically, this changes what gems do when they're socketed in weapons, but now Amethyst adds shadow damage instead of damage over time. Diamond increases all your damage, changed from ultimate damage. Emerald adds poison damage instead of crit damage. Ruby adds fire and holy damage instead of overpower. Sapphire adds cold damage instead of vulnerable. Skulls add physical damage instead of life on kill, and Topaz adds lightning damage instead of basic damage. This doesn't change a whole lot, honestly, but it's a huge win. Bringing the colors of the gems in line with their associated elements makes a lot more sense now. Gems also now do multiplicative damage when they're socketed in weapons instead of additive. I really like these gem changes. Moving on. There have also been some significant improvements to how the map works with Lord of Hatred. First of all, bringing the game in line with other Diablo games, there is finally a map overlay feature, where instead of having a mini-map in the corner of the screen, you can have a semi-transparent map overlay covering the whole screen, making the game more similar to Diablo 2, or also Path of Exile, which has this as well. Plus, and more controversially, there is a new map pathing feature where footsteps will appear in front of your character, showing you where to go to get to your objective or your map pin. For me, this honestly kind of dumbs it down and makes it more like a mobile game, but it does provide accessibility, and to be perfectly honest, I will probably end up using map pathing, even though I feel like it's kind of dumb. But yeah, these are some significant quality of life improvements that'll make the game easier to navigate and enjoy. So good job to Blizzard again for improving the map. And lastly, in terms of improvements to the game, Blizzard has added fishing to Diablo 4. So basically you sit there and throw a line and you catch fish. Some of these fish can be used as currency, others you can use in the Horadric Cube to upgrade items. It's a bizarrely cozy activity in an otherwise very dark fantasy game. So even though fishing seems kind of out of place, it does definitely add to the game, makes it more MMO-like, which is one of the things that I always like in Diablo 4. You can tell when you've played the game as long as I have, that it was originally meant to be an MMO, but then that approach proved to be too laborious, so they gave up and made it a semi-MMO instead. But adding additional systems like fishing makes it more and more like an MMO, so that's the main reason I like the addition of fishing to Diablo 4. And one last perk I want to mention, another reason that you might want to try Lord of Hatred and get into Diablo 4 this year, is the previous DLC, Vessel of Hatred, including the Spiritborn class, is included with this DLC purchase. So you don't have to buy both. If you simply buy Lord of Hatred, you will also get Vessel of Hatred, and you'll gain access to all the classes in the game. This is definitely a good move on behalf of Blizzard, one that I appreciate, even though I'm someone who bought Vessel of Hatred back in the day and then also bought Lord of Hatred, but c'est la vie. Okay, so those are all the improvements to the game this year. All the reasons that I think Diablo 4 is worth playing in 2026. But now let's cover the negatives, the cons, the things that might keep you away from playing the game. We'll cover things like comparing Diablo 4 to Path of Exile, the price of the DLC, and the price of the base game. And we'll even go into the weeds a little bit and discuss whether Diablo has gone from a franchise about defeating evil to a franchise that celebrates evil. All right, let's go ahead and cover the cons, the negatives, why you might not want to play Diablo 4 this year. So first of all, Lord of Hatred has the now standard DLC price of $40. That is the price of admission for most of the features I covered in this video. To truly get the full 2026 experience for Diablo 4, you'll need to fork out $40. If you've never played the game before, you can get Lord of Hatred, the previous DLC, and the base game in what's called the Age of Hatred collection. That costs $70, which I think is the same that Diablo 4 costs at launch, making this a pretty good deal. But yes, you do have to spend money to play the game. You either have to buy the DLC, buy the base game plus DLC bundle, you have to fork over some cash to access the game. That's just the way it is. And even though that's reasonable and to be expected, it's definitely worth mentioning as a reason you might not want to play Diablo 4 this year. Also, a critique that I personally have as a longtime Diablo 4 player is the sheer scope of the changes coming with the DLC might provide something kind of like change fatigue. Diablo 4 had a rocky launch, a difficult first year, and it seems like the approach of the development team since then has simply been to throw features at the wall and hope they stick. There's kind of this willy-nilly, out-of-control attitude with making new features, where so much changes with every season, with every DLC, that it's hard to keep track of all the changes, and honestly the game is unrecognizable from where it was at launch. This is good in some ways. On the whole, the changes are good, but there's also a lot we've lost over the years. Aspects of the game that are never coming back. Diablo 4 keeps changing so much that returning players might have just had enough. This is not a problem for new players, but I can totally understand if you're fed up with the huge scope of changes that come with basically every patch. That is a reasonable reason to skip this year in Diablo 4. All right, now let's cover some of the fundamental systemic issues of the game that really haven't been addressed. Starting with something I kind of mentioned offhand earlier, which is that Diablo 4 is the MMO that never was. In many ways, Diablo 4 can't really decide what it is. Is it the ARPG successor to Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, the main competitor Path of Exile, or is it trying to be an MMO, like World of Warcraft or the Elder Scrolls Online? Many features of the game are MMO-like. There's a vast shared open world that nonetheless often feels dead and empty. There are new MMO-like features, like fishing, but notably lacking are other staples of MMOs like housing, raids, that kind of thing. So for many players who want either one or the other, an MMO or an ARPG, this bizarre fusion of the two can be kind of overwhelming or uncomfortable. Again, a totally valid reason for skipping on the game, one I would totally understand. Also, many people still get caught up on the comparison between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile. Now, I've said it many times, I'll say it again. Path of Exile is just not my thing, either one or two. I'm not going to get too deeply into the reasons for that here. I just don't like either game. I don't like the way they play. I don't like the lore. I don't like the environments. I don't like the customization system, the passive skill tree. The gameplay is clunky to me. It's just not my thing. But in many ways, Path of Exile is still the more fleshed out, the more complex game. So I can totally understand if you feel that way, that you just feel like PoE is better than Diablo 4, and you want to skip it for that reason. I do think, though, with this DLC, that Diablo 4 gets much more in line with the standards that have been put down by Path of Exile, to the extent that maybe even hardcore PoE players might want to now give Diablo 4 a shot. And now for something I've left till last, because it's pretty controversial and it's definitely a personal opinion. But I did also tease earlier in the video my perspective that the Warlock is just downright celebrating evil and demon worship. And yeah, I think that is the case. I think that Diablo is a franchise that has always skirted around the edges of Christian theology, but one reason I've always been attracted to it, as first a Christian leaning and now full-blown Christian man, is that the theme was always fighting evil. You were clearly on the side of the light, fighting the darkness, but with the new Warlock class, with the return of Lilith, with Mephisto, spoiler alert, but with Mephisto essentially inhabiting the body of Jesus and saying he is the way and the light and posing as a false prophet, luring people to their damnation. I don't know, I feel like they've gone too far here. That's why I won't be playing the Warlock personally, and I honestly think there are quite a few occultists and Satanists at Diablo, at Blizzard, making a lot of the story and lore decisions. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not going to go burn a bunch of Harry Potter books over this or something. It's just kind of cringe and lame in this day and age. 2006 is calling. It wants its Satanism back. We just culturally moved on from that kind of thing. It's not cool or edgy anymore. It's just something that aging millennials latch onto to try to maintain their identity in a sea of trad alphas and zoomers. It's just cringe. It's Ohio. It's skibbity toilet. Let's move on from all the, oh, Satan's so cool stuff, guys. The Warlock was a step too far. Thank you for bringing the Paladin in the game. But let's start clearly establishing in the game lore that demons are actually evil and angels are actually good. Light is light. Dark is dark. There is absolute truth. No more BS postmodern silliness, please, guys. It's not that it's wrong or offensive. It's just cringe and lame. Ooh, but what if Satan's actually the good guy? Okay, just shut up already. Okay, thank you for your science projects. Let's move on, little Jimmy. So yeah, I'm skipping the Warlock, just going with the Paladin. And I would encourage Blizzard to just move on from this, to get rid of all the literal witches and, demon people at its studio, or at least just clean up the lore and the story to make it more universally appealing. Not everyone has blue hair, lives in Portland, and practices Wicca with all her cats, guys. It's just old. So anyway, those are my honest thoughts on the Diablo 4 expansion, whether or not it's worth playing Diablo 4 this year. I'll also reiterate that, yeah, for me personally, it's definitely worth playing. I'm going to be enjoying the new Skovos area, all the changes to character customization, the Horadric Cube, everything. It's just the Warlock is not for me. I'm not so into the whole celebrating evil vibe that's going on right now, but I definitely do feel like it's worth playing. And for any ESO players who are watching this, I'd recommend giving the game a shot. If you have the time, if you have the resources. As I mentioned many times before, there's a lot of overlap between ESO and Diablo 4. I think they're very similar and compatible games in a lot of ways. So yeah, if you feel like it's worth it to you, if this video is convincing to you in any way, go ahead and give it a shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed. In the comments, let me know whether you're going to be playing Diablo 4 this year, which class you're going to be playing, which new features you're most excited for. And as always, before I finish the video, I'm going to end with a prayer to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Lord Jesus, thank you for video games and all the creativity and community we get out of them. Thank you for all the changes Blizzard has been inspired to make with Diablo 4 this year. And Lord, I just ask that you bathe Blizzard with your holy lights, that you help show the developers at Diablo 4 that demons actually aren't cool, but that they're lame and cringe, that you bring your holy and spiritual war to that studio, not physical war, I'm not inciting violence, but that you make it a hotbed of spiritual warfare where people cast out demons, embrace the light. And Lord, I thank you so much for my channel and for my community. Thank you for recently getting me to 10,000 subscribers. Lord, I ask that you bless my community, that you continue to help me grow. And Lord, I ask you to bless all those Christian brothers and sisters watching this video, help them in their walk with you, Christ. And also, Lord, please do bring all recently departed souls across the world to your side. I give you all glory for the video today and for my channel, Lord. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. So again, thanks so much for watching. Do leave your comments and thoughts below. And before you go, please remember to like, hype, and subscribe. And when you do subscribe, turn on notifications, because I'll be back soon with new content.